Okay, so yesterday in class we just talked about finding the ratios using triangles that we have information about. So, since we know, and it's always a good idea to write your mnemonic device up here, that the sine is the opposite leg over the hypotenuse, the cosine is the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse, and the tangent leg is the tangent ratio is the opposite leg over the adjacent leg. Okay? So if we're looking for the tangent of A in this triangle, we look at A, we look at the angle at A, and we say, well, tangent is the opposite leg over the adjacent leg. So the tangent of A equals 30 over 16. And the question says, find the value of each trigonometric ratio to the nearest 10,000th. So we can do this by simply putting this into our calculator. We go in, we put 30 divided by 16 in our calculator, and to the nearest 10,000th, it only brings us to the nearest thousandth, so we're done. 1.875. 1.875. And so this is the answer to that. So later we're going to talk about, well, if this is the answer, what is the actual degree measure of A? And we talked about that in class 2, but we're going to do this first, and then we're going to talk about using our calculator to find what the actual degree measure to A is, okay? By using the tangent ratio. This says the cosine of C. So again, we're going to look where C is. We're going to say that the cosine of C equals what? Cosine is adjacent leg over hypotenuse. So here's our adjacent leg, and here's our hypotenuse. H is our hypotenuse. So 12 over 15. And if we want to do that to the nearest 10,000th, again, all we simply do is put 12 divided by 15 in our calculator, and it's 0.8. So to the nearest 10,000th, what would that mean? That means that we're just going to put some placeholders in there. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. And I didn't do that here, so let me go back here. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. Because if it's asking to the nearest 10,000th, then we have to have a place value for the nearest 10,000th. And look what I just did. I just noticed that the camera was a little off. So let's adjust the camera and do 3 and 4 together. So the sine of Z. So again, here's Z. Sine means opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine of Z equals the opposite leg over the hypotenuse, which is 20. And do we need to do that in our calculator? This is also 6/10. Agreed? So the sine of Z equals 6/10, and I write that as 0.6 or 6/10. And because it asks for the 10,000ths up here in the question, I want a 10,000ths digit. Here we have sine of C equals, again, here's my C, so I'm going to mark that angle, opposite over hypotenuse, 30 over 50. And again, do I need to use my calculator to do 30 over 50? Not really. I can turn this into 60/100ths. So the sine of C equals 60/100ths. 60/100ths in a decimal. And again, I'm going to put thousandths and 10,000ths because that's what it's asking me to do. So I'm going to flip this over because it gets a little bit more complicated when the orientation is a little off, right? So here in number 9, the orientation has the right angle up here. So I'm going to identify my hypotenuse, and if I'm looking for the cosine of A, I need to know that I'm marking angle A. The cosine, again, is the adjacent leg over the hypotenuse. So it's 36 over 45. And I can do that in my calculator. I mean, I could also do it in my head, but 36 over 45 is fast. It's 0.8. So the cosine of A equals 0.8000 because tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. All right, and now number 10 is kind of the same thing, right? The orientation is off, so I want to identify my hypotenuse. It's the side opposite the right angle. So the cosine of z equals, what is cosine again? Adjacent leg over hypotenuse. So z is here, adjacent leg is 15, over hypotenuse is 25. And I can do this in my head because this is 100, and this is 60, because 25 times 4 is 100, 15 times 4 is 60. So 61/100ths is pretty easy to write in a decimal, 61/100ths. And then I'm going to put 2 place values in there. So this is how we have to go about using these ratios just to figure out what the actual ratios are. Just to practice that our cosine ratio is our adjacent leg over hypotenuse. Our sine ratio is our opposite leg over our hypotenuse. And our tangent ratio is our opposite leg over our adjacent leg. And that one is down here. So let's skip to number 14. And again, where's the right angle? The right angle is up here, so I'm going to identify my hypotenuse. I'm going to identify where my angle is, the angle A. So the tangent of A equals opposite leg over adjacent leg. So remember, the tangent doesn't even use the hypotenuse, but it's really important to identify where it is so you don't get mixed up with the adjacent leg and the hypotenuse. So 3/4. 30 over 40 equals 3/4, and 3/4 in a decimal is 0.75, and we want to put 2 zeros because it's asking for that. So we're going to stop there on this video, and the next video is going to talk about, well, if I have this ratio, how do I identify what this actual angle degree is? What is this angle degree? And that will be the next video.